Hello, this is the slightly pre-Christmas slash holidays update for the Crane Mountain Gaming project. I am going to first off show you the hoodie, which looks like this. Nice little Crane Mountain Gaming logo, not too ostentatious. So I have some of these in stock, and if you're interested in one, let me know. I'm going to try to get a website up for the company and game project in general, fairly basic before too long, and we'll probably list some of these for sale, and then some like friends and supporters and contributors and stuff are just going to get them pro bono. So that was the first thing I promised I would show this, and I'm multi-layered now, so I'm going to take it off before I get too hot after the video, but be okay for now. So this week we kind of worked on the crafting system. I mentioned in the last video that was the main goal for this week. So I actually got pretty far in the crafting system and made some other improvements. So I'm going to do kind of a demo here. And again, this is totally unscripted. Everything that's set up for this demo was set up through actual gameplay. I don't have any like cheat codes or workarounds yet. So I'm going to kind of do some stuff, show off the new features and the progress on the game and talk about where they're going. And then what's coming up over the holiday break and so on. So we're just going to kind of wing this, which is, how it should work. So that'll be fun. Couple things here. So just by way of setup, what I adventured with this person. So they're actually level 2 now, and they have a level up point, but they haven't spent it yet. So that's going to be relevant in a second. John Cat here has no gear equipped, which is why his frame capacity is 0. So we're going to kill him. That's the plan. Show you how that works. And then we have Melvin Garcia here, who is about to level up. And depending on how their next adventure goes, may or may not actually level up. So we might have to run 1 or 2 to see what happens with Melvin Garcia here. But that's kind of the setup to show off a couple features. So we're gonna send Melvin Garcia off while I talk about stuff. So Melvin's adventuring right now. We left the other 2 on the ship. And so as far as the research and crafting system, if you've read the Facebook page, the way the system works is there are basically recipes, which at the start you don't know any of them, and you have to do research using an object to uncover recipes associated with that object. So that uses the intuition stat, and as your explorers level up and you invest in intuition, you can unlock additional recipes. So crafting is technically optional, but you're going to want to do it, which means if you have multiple explorers, you're going to want an intuition-focused build, probably for at least one of them. That you can use the non-scaling weapons. Oh, new feature, by the way. So we have a kind of an achievement overlay, which doesn't do much yet, but Melvin just leveled up, so we got a big achievement here saying, congrats, Melvin Garcia is now level 2. Eventually, you're going to wire in achievements for like making money, certain amount of things researched, number of times killing monsters, the usual stuff, just to give you some progress indicators and some actual rewards along the way. And they're going to use this little system here. So Melvin is still adventuring here. We're going to do some other stuff on the ship, but yeah, there's kind of an achievement overlay that pops up based on certain results now. And again, the graphics on this are all terrible because we're just focused on gameplay. So the achievement's just kind of a big white screen with a little trophy in the middle of it. So on the crafting and research, so what we're going to do here is we're going to research a recipe, and then so you can see how that kind of unlocks. And then we're going to do some crafting, some success and some failure. And then we're going to spend a level up point. Oh, other new feature here. So we're back on the ship. Melvin finished their adventure, so you see their portrait went back and they came back out to the ship. So, eventually, not this portal graphic, but eventually they're going to, have an animation coming out of the portal and stuff. So Melvin's back here, and let's see, probably got some, he killed some monsters, got some items here. So we're going to do some kind of research on this. And now this is the tricky part because I have to remember what the recipes are. But we'll have Corey Russo do it. So right now, Corey has 2 intuition, which is the starting, and we're going to up that to 3 in a second. But we need to get some stuff for Corey to actually research. So we're going to send Corey over to get some objects from the stash here. And let's see, we'll get a crude frame, which we should be able to research. And that'll probably do it, but we'll get some other stuff to craft with. So, and grab a few things to sell because I think we want to get a shock stick as well. So we're going to go, let's go to the shop real quick and grab a, see if there's a shock stick for sale. Nope, no shock stick for sale. Okay, well, we won't be doing that recipe then. Do we have a crude frame plus? I think somebody has that. So we're going to, let's see, inventory. Yeah, so we're going to unequip this, and we're just going to stash it, and we're going to give it to... So the explorers can't trade directly yet. That's coming up shortly. But we just put stuff into it and take it out of the stash. So we're going to get that, because I think there's a Intuition 3 recipe with that. I'll just grab a few other things. So, so yeah, this is this little stash object, and then this is the assembler, which right now looks like a crappy microwave. But basically, this is a nano assembler device. It's going to look kind of like a future sort of 3D printer type thing, but really with some assembler arms, something along those lines. So this is a list of our known recipes. You could this is a player menu. So these are explorer options, and these are player options. So player options include hiring, just taking a peek at the stash, how much money we have, what items are in the stash. So we're going to take a look at our known recipes. And this is empty right now because we haven't learned any recipes. I've learned hundreds of them along the way, but of course I wiped the database. So right now, our player doesn't know any recipes. And although the explorers do the research, the players learn the recipes. So once you've unlocked it, anybody can craft with it. You've sort of acquired the knowledge. So explorers can die off, then you'll be good. Speaking of explorers dying off, we're going to send John Cat real quick out to do some adventuring. John has no gear equipped, and you'll notice their position resets, so we're going to save that straight. But we sent John Cat out on an adventure with no gear. You'll notice he was just killed by a juvenile ranid. So it's going to update, show he's dead, eventually put a big red X through it, and then the portrait's gone. So we're doing some of this sort of explore and scene management improvements as we go. Okay, so let's see. I'm just going to stash all his stuff for later. We'll kill him too, because then I won't get confused about who I'm using. So Melvin Garcia is going to go get killed. So we're going to learn some recipes with Corey Russo, who again currently has 2 intuition. So to do research, so basically 2 options. One is research, the other is crafting. These are just simple basic icons I'm using right now. So we're going to send Corey over there to, oh, there we go, killed by a worse trap. Yeah, not creative names yet. So Melvin Garcia is dead too. We're going to send Corey over here to do some research. So the way the research works is you basically any item in your inventory you can do research on, and it'll unlock a recipe. And this part I haven't tested since I finished coding it, so fingers crossed. So we're going to research the small tardigrade hide, and there are just a couple recipes now. So we're in analysis mode as opposed to crafting mode. We're going to research the tardigrade hide, and basically no results. Now research will have a duration, so the explorer will have to remain researching. There'll be kind of a countdown, they'll complete. And they actually get some experience from researching as well. But right now it's instant. So no results on the small tardigrade hide. We're going to research a crude frame, and now we've unlocked a recipe, grounded frame added to database. So if we go look at our research database, we now have a recipe where if we combine a crude frame and a shock stick, we get a grounded frame. Now we don't have a shock stick, and there's none in the shop, so we can't craft that. So we're going to try and research again. We got no results. So that's the only crude frame based recipe we have. And I think, yeah, I don't have recipes for these others. Now, if we go raise intuition, so now we have an intuition of 3, and of course our psychic resistance went up. We should be able to research and unlock an additional recipe. So we just researched the crude frame again. Now that we have 3 intuition, we learned a new recipe for a frame. Now the grounded frame is a slightly better frame with shock resistance, but it's still a basic item. Whereas now that we have 3 intuition, we unlocked not a crude frame, but a standard frame, which is an uncommon item. So anyway, just minor scaling. So now if we combine a crude frame and a small ranid hide, we should get a frame. So we're going to go do some crafting. So crude frame and a small ranid hide. And the order here actually matters. So the crafting button isn't unlocked. You can't use it until multiple items have been added. So now it's enabled. if you'll see if I remove these, I can't craft. It's disabled. And the colors on those buttons are terrible, but anyway, we'll get there. So small randed hide, we're going to craft. It's processing and it's assembled a frame. So now we've actually crafted this frame using those two components. If we combine two items for which we don't have a recipe, or there is a recipe but we don't know it, that also matters. Like we'll take this crude frame and this small tardigrade hide. There's no recipe for this yet. The assembler will try to combine them, but it's just going to eat them. Assembly failed. So those things are dead and gone. So the assembler will let you destroy your own items. It's not idiot proof. It will eventually remind you that you're trying to craft something without a recipe and give you the choice or not. But if you combine correct items in the correct order according to a recipe you know, it will actually create the items. So this is now an upgraded frame which we can equip. Boom. And now we have a stronger defense, but no weapons. So we should put a weapon on this person. Here we go. Got a bolt pistol. So Corey Russo won't survive terribly well without a better weapon. So yeah. So there's the crafting system. So basically, the combination of the research, which is going to be the piece that the explorer has to do actively, which is basically analyzing the materials. And then programming the assembler to be able to craft the item from different properties of the materials. That's going to require the explorer to focus on it for some amount of time. The crafting, once you've started it, will occupy the assembler, and it'll take a while to craft. But the assembler uses what's been programmed during the research to craft the item. So you can be off exploring while your crafting is occurring. But if you only have one assembler, you can only craft one item at a time. So you need to make sure you're locking it up for valuable purposes. And you may be able over time to purchase more assemblers if that becomes an issue, which would be something to do with currency you've accumulated over time. So Corey Russo's been beefed up. So that's kind of the research system and the crafting system. So it's mostly just like text and objects now. Eventually animations, timers and delays and so on. But mechanically, that's what's happening. And all of this, of course, is keeping state on the server side, which you can't really see. But all the recipes are stored on the server, so I can add more recipes without having to push out updates to the game or anything like that. And it's loading the recipes that on startup from the dialogue and so on and so forth. So there you go, basics of the crafting system. Couple things we're eventually going to do with crafting. One will be like a third optional slot or additional slots where you can insert items that don't really change the results of the recipe but modify what you get back. So you still need to use a valid recipe and it'll produce that item, but that copy of the item will be enhanced in some way. So you might combine a crude frame plus a power cell to make a shock frame, but you can put this third object in and it'll produce like an enhanced shock frame or something like that. So we're going to do that at some point, but that's not kind of critical right now. So there you go, research, crafting, some improvements to the scene transitions, obviously a little bit of motion added to the game, people moving back and forth and actually using the objects, just some basic kind of improvements added. So that was the progress for this week, and a lot of that on the server side. So we got the overlays, we got the adventure transition improvements, we built the research and the crafting system. Oh, and the other thing I forgot to mention is the power cells before were just a stub where we were just keeping track of a number, how many power cells do they have, and if the frame is depleted, they use them. I created a new class for consumable items, which are not thematically, since this is a different themed game, but they're basically potions like any other game. You use them or you chug them, they have an effect and they go away. So I created a consumable class, and right now the only consumable is a power cell, which is now an item that goes in your inventory, you can craft it, and on use, the effect of the power cell is to target your equipped frame and recharge its capacity. The advantage of the consumable class is I can create different capacity power cells. I can create temporary buff items, like for 30 seconds it has these effects. it might recharge your frame a bit, and it might give you a temporary strength boost. A lot of these items haven't been built yet, but the frame for multi-effect components that enhance different stats are there. And they can have an infinite duration as well. So you could have, for example, as an achievement reward, an item that on use gives a specific explorer a permanent increase in strength or something of those sort. So that was kind of a bunch of work I did on the server side to create that. So the idea eventually is there would be items that might give you a temporary increase to multiple stats, but a decrease to a certain type of resistance or something. Probably familiar with that from a lot of games. So that went on too, but that's largely invisible. But the upshot of that is I don't have any power cells in this character anymore, so if their frame is depleted, they have to up it. So that's off the menu. Before I just had this little menu thing that just gave them more power cells. Now I buy them from the shop or I craft them. And you can actually see that if I hire a new explorer. Gale here comes equipped with a power cell. So this basic power cell restores 30 frame capacity. So we can move the power cells around between explorers, and you want to make sure that they have them when they're exploring. So there you go. Little demo of all the new features added. The next two sort of targets, one is I want to add a little bit of just life to the content, which is like the explorers when they're exploring or idle or whatever will occasionally say things. So I'm going to build a big database of sayings and things and some logic around when they pick something out and say it, and making sure there's appropriate context for the comments. Once we have that in place, which means like a little dialogue bubble and the trigger for that, I'd like to add some conversation. So eventually, if you have multiple explorers, they may periodically have a witty exchange or something like that. And that's just to give them a bit more personality and also kind of drop some hints about the game and the story and the content and the mystery and so on. But those will be the baseline for other future enhanced interactions. The other thing I'd like them to do, even though we have just this crappy jogging animation that they do right now, is have them kind of mill about on the ship a little. So they're not just standing and running in one place. They'll occasionally sort of walk around and stuff like that. And that's part of me just learning how to do the vector transforms and making sure people move around each other and don't overlap and things like that. So I need to get the hang of that. We got the basics of moving around to the different objects and things like that, but there are a lot of circumstances where people will like stack on top of each other and do kind of weird looking stuff. So I want to sort those out. And then on the content side, over the break, I'm going out of town, and I have the surgery that I mentioned, and I'll be recovering for a while and probably unable to use my arms for a couple days. And I won't have my computer and rig. I'll just have my little Surface with me while I'm out of town. So I'm going to spend that time actually on the content side coming up with more like enemy types, more item types, more crafting recipes, and so on. So we can build out the content of the game. Because right now, even though the explorers can technically level up to 40, there's basically only content for about 3 levels. And then after some of the interactivity stuff and the content things, then we're going to introduce the concept of the portal cubes working. I don't know what I'm actually going to call them yet, but they're basically items that you can find or craft that power the portal generator and seed different types of adventures. So you could craft a portal that when you go through is more likely to have a certain type of enemy or more likely to have traps or other things, so that you can use the power of the crafting system, scale your characters differently, and come up with these adventures that are optimized for certain outcomes or more appropriate for certain characters, so that there's more decision there. Increase the risk reward, play it safe, decrease the risk reward, etc. So we're going to introduce that concept and build a bunch of crafting recipes around those. And that will make the economy a lot more meaningful. And that, of course, relies on a lot more adventure content that I have to build. So that's kind of the plan for now, is to sort of not set the code aside, but do a little bit less coding and do a whole bunch more spreadsheet work and balance work, basically. So there you go. Thanks for checking out the update. As always, if you have questions or feedback or anything, let me know. And Have a good winter break, a Merry Christmas, or whatever else you celebrate. Peace out, and we'll see you with an update in, I don't know, say 2017.